What's up, everybody? This is Joe from Gun Gamers. I know it's been a hot minute since you've probably seen me on camera, but I have something very special for you today. We're going to be talking about impression kits. In front of us, we have a kit from Keg, Task Force Keg, and over here we have a very nice, as you can see, Flectarn kit from the KVB group. And what we're going to be talking about today is a couple of different topics about what the hell is an impression kit, and more so than that, how do I do this? Do I want to do this? And if you should choose to, how do you go about doing it? But I'd like to introduce, very proudly I might add, my buddy Steve.
Hey guys, Airsoft NCT known as in some circles.
Okay, so we're going to plug them right now at the beginning and then at the end. Airsoft NCT. He's on YouTube. Check his stuff out. He goes into crazy detail. If you have any interest in anything German kit at all, please check his stuff out. It's phenomenal and the production quality is... So anyway, let's start off, of course. An impression kit is a collection of gear and airsoft guns and kit and everything you could possibly imagine that is grounded and based in something in reality, a unit somewhere out there from any time frame really, and you're trying to replicate that as closely as you can to have something that is feasible in reality and something that you might have actually seen at some point on a battlefield somewhere. Why would you want to do something like that? Well, because often the kits are extremely hot, they look great, and it's something about being able to be part of a group. That's a big thing about these impression kits, is especially in MilSim community, MilSim West, AMS, a lot of these groups, you'll see these groups of airsoft players that decide to get together and do the same thing. But it's more than just matching your camo. Way more than just matching your camo. You're going to be looking at reference pictures. You're going to be having to talk with people. Maybe you have some people that actually enlisted during the time frame that you're looking to get into. And there are time frames here. There's actually, do you want to do the 2010 to 2013? 2013, 2014. 2014, 2015, then it took a break. You get where I'm going with this. There's a whole set of kit that could change based on time frame. Well, if you know people that were in at that time, you might be able to ask them, what did you bring? Where did you put your pouches? Even that level of detail is how incredible an impression kit can get to. Task Force Keg does the 10th Mountain, and unfortunately I don't remember the exact years we're doing that. I think it's 2011 and 2014. Garrett will yell at me later, but there's that time frame. The KVB group, for the direct action kit, that was
2010 to 2013.
So there you go. So if you go outside of that time frame, your kit changes. So let's touch on what we got in front of us right now. So I am a passion member of Task Force Keg. I have my base rifleman kit in front of me. Typically I do what's called the RTO role, which is radio transmissions operator. So my primary airsoft toy while I'm out doing this stuff is actually a radio, not my rifle, but hey, that's that kit there. And I've been in it for about a year and a half now, ran 2 MilSim West events. Corey's service and what he did, he had a ton of references, he had tons of friends he could talk to, and Garrett and he and Ian and a few other people put together a really solid, what you're going to hear several times in this video, of a kind of a playbook of, here's the reference pictures, here's the information, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. It becomes your book for going, if I'm going to do this kit, what do I do, where to go? And often in that, you'll get, where to get this stuff too. Links to places, that sort of thing.
KVB kind of started the same way. It's got a very long history, whether that's KSK USA or if we're going right to Schattengruppe, which is the big chapter of KVB in the Northeast. But I will say a lot of the KVB roots can be pointed towards Schattengruppe, which is, again, the northeastern part. We do have groups actually all over the world. We have some in Japan and Chile, but the US is our primary focus. And that started about 5-6 years ago. And what they did was very similar to what Garrett and the Gun Gamers group did, was they looked at a lot of reference pictures and they cultivated a full list of things that are okay, things that maybe a little too hard to get, so you can get this kind of substitute. And especially with the German kit, like, it can get very challenging. So having that resource was one of the big things that catapulted them into jumping into MSWs with 9, 10, up to 16 members for many, many years.
Yeah. So, that brings us to our next point, which we kind of touched on this. How do you get into this? Like, if any of this interests you, where do you even start? Well, luckily, if you're getting into a group that already exists, there are Facebook groups, there are Discord groups, there's, tons of things. But ultimately, sometimes walking up to somebody during a game going, what is that? Results in, somebody giving you a phone number or a Facebook account, and you message them, and then you just roll right into it. A lot of the impression groups are always looking to expand. So what ends up happening is you go up and say, hi, and then they go, hey, this is what you need to do. Come talk to these people, join the group and get a vibe and see how you feel. And you just roll right into it. They give you their playbook and you start asking questions, which we'll get to, because that's one of the most important things. But what if you want to start from scratch? Now that's hard. That's really hard because, there are tons of impression groups now all over. They're getting real popular, right? People have found that replicating the real thing and realizing that the real thing looks good because it does. So if you're going for a realistic look in an airsoft game, copy what was actually done, because ultimately that's what we're doing. So we're replicating, we're playing fake BB wars, and so replicating a kit works out. But if you want to start from scratch, it's tough because you're going to have to figure out what you want to do. You have to try to get people together to do it. And that's not to say, absolutely, you can just straight up do your own kit and you can be your own person and your own thing. You go to a MilSim event and maybe you'll stand out a little bit, but you'll look good doing it. If you can get a couple of people together, that's when an impression really starts to take off. And it makes it easier for you too. It's not cheap. Not at all. It's not cheap. It is a commitment, and that's a big part. Any part of this is a huge commitment. So keg, relatively speaking, not the worst thing in the world, because I live in the country where the gear was issued, and you can walk into a surplus store and kind of find the stuff based on what you're going for. How's KVB looking?
KVB is quite a big turn from that. I can confidently say that I have walked into many surplus stores and I've never found anything that is correct for the kit. What you'll find is that you're working a lot with foreign sellers, mainly like foreign eBay accounts or eBay Kleinanzeigen for Germany specifically, which is a German specific like eBay classified. It's kind of like Craigslist but through eBay. It's a whole different ballgame. As well as Facebook groups, and having contacts. One of our guys just got a huge lot of really cool stuff because he knew someone that was in the KSK from that era. Like, it's a kind of a different ball game, but it's a whole new fun adventure in its own right.
And you wind up partially learning another language in the process.
Yeah,
because you
sprichst du Deutsch? Yeah.
You wind up having to use Google Translate.
What's the Coca-Cola, meine Frage?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I guess for keg, you can throw on any American accent. The more annoyed that Matt Lutz or anybody else gets, the better. In this situation, you wind up listening on the radio and getting German accents from time to time, which is good, especially when they're being sarcastic and telling you to shut up.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect. Look for helpers. Right, that's a big thing. Just like Steve was mentioning, contacts. Right, finding people who are also interested in this, and a big thing because I'm doing the direct action kit.
He's doing it well.
That's because guess who I'm buying all of my stuff from?
Not all of it, some of it.
My first piece of gear was the Lindenhof Gen 3 plate carrier that came from this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't odd. He was like, oh, you should, yeah. Anyway, so look for helpers. They're there. Right, impression kits want to help each other out. That's a really big thing. You can't have a complete impression group unless everybody's got everything you need. So somebody is always posting an eBay listing or saying I found this, or hey, I got a better version of this or a less beat up one. Do anybody want my old one for cheap? Right, things like these kits. We're going for standard. Right, we're trying to get to a standard of we want to do this. So there's a little bit of almost it's not gatekeeping, but like in order to say that you've run the full kit with that group, it's called getting patched in. Now in the case of keg, we actually have patches that were made up by a few people, and you've probably seen it. It says alcoholic and has a crossed bottle and bottle opener, which looks very close to the 10th Mountain patch, actually. And it's a little tongue-in-cheek. But getting patched in means that you completed the kit and you've rolled, and in our situation, you have to roll one full MilSim West, which is the same thing for...
Same thing. You got to roll MilSim West, get the gear correct, and pass the vibe check.
Right.
It's a low bar.
And the important thing is about that is that you don't drop out.
Right.
Don't drop out. That's a huge thing. You'll hear that screamed quite a bit during MilSim West. So Google's your friend, but questions are really key on that. If you find a reference photo or a piece of kit or something, and you go, oh, I think this is legitimate, ask your fellow members before you spend the money, because there is a very good chance that you might find something that looks correct, and then you spend the money and the time to have it shipped out, and it turns out it's not right. Point is, also, attention to detail is one of the most important things about any impression kit. In fact, it's one of the most important things you can do in any impression kit. Is the civilian mechanics gloves have this bright yellow thing. The covert gloves are covert for a reason. They're black. They don't stand out like that. So I'm going to take a Sharpie to these, but they're still never going to look right. So... compromise. We'll get to compromise in a minute. So it's just, again, ask questions, because if I had asked specifically about these, granted they weren't that expensive, I could have waited or just gotten something else.
Okay. Just this quick thing I wanted to mention about attention to detail, especially once you get into like very deep impression kits, and we'll talk about specific kinds of like different varieties of kits a little bit more later. But you'll end up finding that you are working a lot on like 2 pictures. This entire breacher kit, I based 1-to-1 off of a guy, and I had 2 pictures of him. Some of the stuff that you'll end up finding is general, and it'll work for a lot. But once you get down to like really wanting to perfect an impression kit, it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle. And that's okay. You're going to have to get really good at identifying, but it takes practice. So with attention to detail, as Joe was saying, ask questions, and dig a little yourself, and you'll get there.
So yeah, that's attention to detail, and it's the fun part. Mm-hmm. I think it's the fun part. It's having a piece of kit that someone goes, "Why do you have that?" And then pulling up a reference photo and going, "That guy has it." Make up a name for the dude, right? He becomes your
I had to custom sew a sling. I've never sewn before.
You learned new skills.
They're awful, but I did it for this kit. Yeah, it's a good time.
The 1-point sling, right? That's the
the guy, it's the weirdest thing. I'll get into it later.
The whole story. Personal stories are going to happen, because there's when you're doing this too, there's a lot of cool things that happen. Because again, you're not just putting together a costume to wear around the house. I do, I'll fully admit, it helps with chores, it just makes it good for me. Mm-hmm. But we go out, we play airsoft, which means you get cool stories that go along with this, and sometimes the cool stories happen because you're in the right place at the right time with the right kit. Why don't you talk a little bit about the different KSK kits?
Yeah, so I'll just maybe a little bit of background. We're going to go into stories later. But I started this kit December 25th of 2017 was when I was like, okay, I'm going to do a KSK kit. Started looking at reference photos, was talking to Shat and Grippo a lot, and that was it. I didn't finish my baseline kit until maybe mid-2019. And then that's just the baseline kit. So I've been spending a lot of time the past couple of years really kind of understanding and researching and building the diversified things that you can do. So for KSK specifically, there's 4 main kits that we use in KVB. And if you are interested in all the different kind of kit breakdowns, we do have a kit list on our main GI page that talks about how the KSK structured their squads, platoons, and all that. But for KVB specifically, we use 4 different kinds, one being the breacher, which is my kind of passion project right now. We have a medic kit. We actually have a couple guys that are fully done with medic kits. Those are great. Lots of medic water can be carried with those. We've also got a Grenadier kit, which is awesome. The Grenadier kit is the AG-36. Garrett's working on it. He just got my old AG-36, and I'm excited for him to run it.
He doesn't have a G36 yet. He has the grenade launcher, which if you've been following the channel for any length of time, story checks out.
Right, that's all he needs. And then you can get into other kits like the combo guy. That is radio operator. It's gonna be Joe. And of course there are variations even upon that, but those are the 4 main ones that KVB uses. And they're all kind of different, but they're all kind of the same, which is the good part. So the way KVB operates is we want people to finish their baseline kit first. And I think that's true with a lot of impression kits. Once you get to the variations, all it is the baseline kit plus and minus some stuff. I can remove maybe 4 or 5 pouches from here, maybe add 1 or 2, and I have a standard rifleman kit. it can be done as long as you have the baseline kit, and that I think is one of the most fun parts about it. So if you want to touch on that with your gear.
So keg, really in our playbook, it again falling under a lot of military doctrine, regardless of the impression group, is we need riflemen, right? They're the ones that kick in the doors and have a platform that can reach distances and kind of be a general infantryman. That's what it came from, right? So keg is interesting because really you have the baseline IOTV. And it's kind of nice too because our kits basically come in either God's Gravel or UCP or multicam, and that spreads out over quite a good time frame actually. UCP was used for a long time, and they didn't actually change over to multicam gear until a little bit later, but the multicam uniform was around for a while. So when you look at keg photos, or if you see us rolling, in our doctrine, unless there's a specific reason that we all want to run a specific thing, you'll see a big spattering and mix of things, and it all kind of looks right, because it's really the same patterns of stuff, just different colors. Now, granted, the IOTV, you can use an SPCS as a variant on that, but basically it's change your pouches up. You have to, as a rifleman specifically, you have to be able to carry 6 magazines, plus 1 in your M4, but you can carry more mags, that's fine. Just that's what you have to have on you. You have to have an IFAK, or a first aid kit. Located in I think it's for us a specific location. I think it's the same thing with
pretty much. Yep.
It's got to be. I think it's on your left side, but I think if you move over to your right, no one's really going to yell at you. We're a little bit looser with that. We want you to be able to carry frags. We want you to be able to, if I'm an RTO, I have to have easy access to my radio gear, and there's specific pouches that are all made by the kind of the same manufacturers. If you search USGI, chances are your kit's going to be kosher for keg. That being said, Eagle Industries is really big, but when you want to get down into the specialty classes, that's where it can get a little interesting, especially our recon groups. We did Balcar Mountain a couple of months ago, which was great. I almost died for no other reason than it was like 13 miles and like a bajillion foot elevation change. But we did. I did an Eagle Industries H harness instead of running an IOTV because we were doing a mountain recon group. Well, there were a couple of different colors I could have used, but I wanted multicam, and that doubled the cost of the kit. So time frames.
So with KVB, again, our main time frame is 2010 to 2013. And that is going to be the Linderhof Tactic Gen 3 with the whole suite of Linderhof Tactic pouches. You get a couple variations, possibly, like you've got a Benchmade tool there. You'll see some weird stuff. But that's Flectarn. Like, through and through, all the plate carrier stuff is Flectarn with the exception of like multicam IFAK and maybe a couple other tan things. The uniform is also Flectarn in Germany, so I don't want to say stateside, but in Germany. Outside of that, they use multicam, and that is probably one of the only things that carried over as soon as you go 1 year outside of what KVB does. So again, we end at 2013. 2014 is when the Gen 5 suite of pouches came, and that is 100% different. Truthfully, there is not a single pouch on my carrier that they used once they got to 2015, maybe the exception of the pistol thing, but even those got updated. And their main uniform is still Flectarn, but they were multicam in a lot of promotional pictures. So as soon as you step outside of a certain time frame, maybe some stuff will translate, and I'm sure that's similar for keg. But for some specialty groups, it's a drastic change, and that will drastically increase the amount of money that you're spending on things if you choose to pursue a kit like that. However, I will say, I do want to add this, I know we didn't talk about it, but with KVB, we have this 2010 to 2013 kit. What happens with the German Bundeswehr is outside, once gear kind of gets replaced, it doesn't get like shipped off, it doesn't find its way to a surplus store, it actually gets recycled into the next unit. So there are EGB groups that were using this up until 2016. The German Kampfretter, which is like the American PJs, they used this gear in 2015 until they switched over on the 2017 era. So you will find gear that can be recycled and can be used for other kits, but once you step outside of that time frame, again, it can change entirely.
Yep. And again, that's where questions come from, right? And double checking your sources too. Big thing is if you happen to search a lot of KSK impression groups, several members of the airsoft team will show up at the very top of the search list.
If you search KSK, it's because there's not a lot of photos of it. So
what ends up happening is if you search 10th Mountain, you're going to get a lot of kits. You're going to get a lot of kits and good reference photos that were taken because when the U.S. did Afghanistan and Iraq, we recorded it, right? We had camera people, we had news groups. It was probably one of the largest first grand scale recordings of war of that scale, and so subsequently there's reference photos everywhere. Special Forces Group, that's
not really. Yeah.
So, kind of the last point that we want to make today, and thank you for joining us for this, because this is a passion. Really getting into this is more than just going and buying some stuff to throw on to go play with your friends. This is like when you want to go, I don't want to say the next level, but when you're a gear nerd, which is what we are, this stuff's cool. It's cool to find that unique thing, or find that a Special Forces group ordered a small batch of something specifically for this one tool that they needed for this one mission, but then it became standardized. And there's a backstory that we'll never know about it, but it shows up in all the reference photos after this weird particular date. But why are we doing this, right? Why do you do this? And I'm going to tell a personal story. I'm going to have Steve tell a personal story. And for me, I it really, the root cause is Garrett and Corey were so passionate about this 10th Mountain Impression Group and Task Force KEG and building this up. And I'm great friends with them, and Eric was super on board with it. Kyle was super on board with it. The Gun Gamers fell right behind these guys and were like, yep, we're Task Force KEG now. And you'll find that a tremendous number of Gun Gamers cross right over into that. And it's fun because it's community for me. It was great because it was just me going, all right, what do I need? And Garrett just sending me link after link after link after link, going, just buy this stuff. I'm like, well, what money? He goes, don't worry about it, buy this stuff. And now I have a full kit. And for me, running around in this kit it's heavy, it's bulky, it objectively sucks compared to some of my nice, like, I have a Banshee flight carrier that I love that I haven't worn in forever because I keep wearing this thing. But at MilSim West, from a radio operator, when I was doing radio operating, I wasn't in the front, I wasn't door kicking. But what I did get to see is a line of KEG members with machine guns lined up and rifles, pouring fire on a building and shooting grenades and throwing and yelling and just being this aggressive, crazy force. And it just filled me with a sense of like, yeah, we're getting something done. It was fun. The big thing for me at the Guardian Center in 2021 was the KVB group happened to be assigned to the platoon that Garrett was in charge of. And we didn't have to do much with them, if we're being honest. Most of these guys went off on their own little adventures, and I just kind of checked in with them to make sure they were still alive or needed food or ammo. But I got to watch them breach a building, and it was at that moment that I went, I'm doing this kit. And so here I am with a nigh completed kit. It's almost
mostly complete. You're
but what's your thing? What captured you about this?
Yeah, so back then, a JG G36C was my first airsoft gun. And I was like, this is awesome. I got it in, 2011? Jeez, I've been doing this for over 12 years.
Don't think about it.
I know, I can't. That's about half my life. But that gun, I was like, yeah, this is great, but I want to do something with it. So I started an airsoft Instagram page, and it was Airsoft in CT, shameless plug. But I wanted to share the stuff in Connecticut, because I was like, the community's great, I'm loving this, let's share it. And Shat and Grupa started tagging me in things to share. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. They have G36s, December 25th of 2017, and here we are. But I think one of the things with KVB that keeps me, not only keeps me there, because I love this stuff and I don't intend on dropping it anytime soon, but KVB has a killer community. We go to MSWs maybe, I'd say about twice, 3 times a year if we can get lucky, because we are a smaller group. We have about 15 active members and then a slew of probationary members coming up. But yeah, he's one of them. But what keeps me coming back and what really makes me feel like this is a strong community is the stuff we do outside of Airsoft. We have a KVB took me to my first haunted house. We've done backpacking trips. We've done meals. We were just at lunch today, measuring TK5 push-a-talks with calipers because we're crazy. Like, there's such a strong, just a friendship that we form, even outside of Airsoft. And that's one of the things that I enjoy about a small group like KVB, is we have that we have that fun together, both on the MilSim West field, local fields, and then just outside of it.
It's not a heavy thing. This is just a really cool, point. You all have the common thing of Airsoft, right? Impression almost refines that into going kind of finding a direction and working together, and you realize you're helping each other out, and it sort of builds a community around it, which is a lot of fun. And some, I'll be honest though, before we wrap up, some impression groups are more stringent.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more stringent fitness requirements, which we're not going to touch on, but fitness requirements. Sometimes even more stringent gear requirements where you can't even have reproduction gear. Like you need to have 1-to-1. This has got to be an issued piece of gear. Like crazy things like that. But those groups can get pretty large in size if you do the right group. But do your comfort level, right? If you want to go completely all in, there's some crazy good groups that do fitness standards and everything, which is great because everybody it gives you an opportunity if you're looking for a goal to do that. This is a great way to do it, right? You necessarily can't wear this gear and run around for 40 hours almost, unless you kind of get yourself to that level. Not to discourage anybody from doing that, but just be cognizant of what you're getting into. Mm-hmm. You may find you want to do an impression group that's existing and it's not for you. That's okay. Mm-hmm. You might be able to find another group that is equally cool or something else you're interested in, and they're more laxed in their standards, and you're able to get in and build it up from there, right? So don't get discouraged, but it is an experience. It is a time thing. It's a time and money thing. That's the biggest thing about this. This is 100% one of those things. If you throw enough money at it, the problem will go away, and that happens to be impression kits like this. Mm-hmm. But thank you very much for joining us today. We hope we kind of gave you a general overview of impression kits as a whole, our specific kits, and why you might see, at larger scale games or even your local games, why 4 or 5 people are running around in the exact same kit looking very uncomfortable. So I'm Joe from Gun Gamers.
And I'm Airsoft and CT. We'll see you in the next one.